Hello there friends and welcome. Today's guide is all about the Paladin class, which I never really talked about before besides my Scylla build. Paladins can make for amazing characters in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, mostly because of their unique ability Smite Evil and later its upgrade Mark of Justice, that completely destroy evil aligned creatures, which are the enemies you face in Wrath overall, so all of the demons and 99% of all of the other enemies too. It's actually a very stacked class, with great synergy based on your charisma. You can achieve the most absurd amounts of saving throws, pretty good armor class as well, high attack bonus and great damage too, all by remaining a pure paladin with your default class progression. And for these builds we are going with the Angel Mythic path to further empower our spell casting capabilities with the very powerful angel buffs, as paladins actually do gain spells by themselves, some pretty neat self buffs too. So first, let's take a look on what the Paladin class actually gives you. As soon as level 1 you already gain Smite Evil, once per day, and this will increase in uses as you level in Paladin. As a swift action you can choose a single evil aligned creature. Against that creature for the whole battle duration, you'll get to add your charisma modifier, which can become very high as you can see here, 18, to your attack bonus, and then your entire Paladin's class levels to your damage. So the target is basically marked for death. Even at the early levels like level 1, it can already be of use. You also get to bypass any damage reduction the creature might have, which is amazing too, because this will work for example your elemental enchantments. Third, it even grants you a bonus to your armor class, equal to your charisma modifier. At the start, it's just deflection, which isn't that good. On the other hand, later on through gear, we can improve this to a sacred bonus, which is crazy good. Most importantly, Paladins also get the party-wide version of Smite Evil at level 11 called Mark of Justice, which is the same except, well, it lets your entire party benefit from your Smite Evil buff, so your whole party, pets included, and summoned creatures as well, will gain your Paladin's charisma modifier to their attack rolls and your Paladin's class levels to damage. This is one of the best and most powerful abilities in the entire game, and any party is better off having this, which is what makes Paladin such a prized character for any party composition. Paladins also have the Lay on Hands ability, which lets them heal party members or also themselves. When you use this on party members, it costs a standard action, so will eat pretty much your entire action for the round, unless you do it out of battle. On the other hand, when used to heal yourself, it only costs a swift action, so is instantly cast, which is great for making sure your character himself is healed. Also, they can empower their Lay on Hands through the Mercy ability to restore all sorts of annoying status ailments like fatigue, diseased, confused, cursed, and so on. They also have some other supportive abilities like Aura of Resolve to increase your allies' morale bonus to saving throws against charm effects, but most importantly Aura of Faith to let your nearby allies bypass demons' physical resistance against damage, and even immunity to diseases. Lastly, one of the main powers of Paladin is choosing between a horse companion or also the Divine Weapon Bond ability. And here's how they both work. For Divine Weapon Bond, if you've already played a class like Magus or Shaman, who can enchant their weapons with elemental damage and so on, it works the same. It lasts 1 minute per Paladin level, which is huge, and can eventually last for entire dungeons. You can also get multiple uses of this, and you gain an increasing number of effects that you can enchant your main weapon with, depending on your level. So, starting at level 4 you have Flaming and Keen, starting from level 8, Axiomatic and Holy, both of which are of extreme importance when fighting against demons, also Disruption and Flaming Burst. At level 11 Speed, which doesn't really matter, we can just use Haste, and at level 14 Brilliant Energy, which while powerful costs quite a lot, and there's other ways of getting it, such as Finian. And of course Paladins can also get a trusty steed to aid them. Honestly, I do believe the horse is the way to go as far as power and effectiveness, because the bonuses you get from having a horse are simply way better than that of Divine Weapon Bond. In most cases, Divine Weapon Bond will result in more damage against enemies, especially through the aid of the Elemental Barrage mythic ability. So I will say it can be pretty powerful. The horse, on the other hand, it's almost like having an entire extra party slot. Now for this guide, I'll actually cover both Paladin type of builds, a horse Paladin, I mean, a Paladin with a horse companion, so you can benefit from mounted combat, and also the Divine Weapon Bone Paladin. So first, let's get started with our mounted Paladin, which is the one I prefer. Now, when it comes to archetypes, honestly, my favorite choice is the default Paladin. Some of the archetypes gain decent abilities, but the cost is way too high. For example, Divine Guardian, no spellcasting, that's a big nope. Even if you can combine, let's say, with the Angel Mythic path later on, Paladins actually have access to some pretty unique and powerful spells, even at the early levels. Divine Hunter, which is a decent choice for ranged characters, but, and here we go, no Mark of Justice, that's a big nope too. The same for Divine Scion, Warrior of the Holy Light, quite powerful bonuses, and when you look at it, apparently the only thing it loses is Aura of Faith, which is not really powerful. And that's until you realize this archetype also doesn't gain divine spellcasting at all, so honestly, just go with the normal Paladin. For race, we are going with Human. It is the one I like the best, as you might already know, but Paladins aren't exactly Feats starved, especially as a two-handed Paladin, which we are going for, so you can go with another race of your choice. For background, well, if you want to use a weapon other than Falchion, you can go with, for example, Leader, to increase your attack bonus with rapiers, longswords, and greatswords. Rapiers are amazing weapons, longswords can work for paladins too because of the Radiance artifact, which is the ultimate paladin longsword. But just like Scylla, I would rather go with Street Urchin and then Pickpocket for the very neat bonus to initiative. The sooner we can act as a paladin, then sooner we can get either Smite Evil or later on Mark of Justice going at the enemy for maximum attack bonus and also damage boosts. For your ability points, Charisma is what really should be your main attribute, so we want 19. This will result in less, let's say, attack bonus than going all out on strength, but on the other hand, remember that your most powerful abilities Smite Evil and also Mark of Justice are directly related to how high your Charisma is, so that's 19 Charisma, 14 Strength for a nice increase to attack bonus and damage, 12 Dexterity is more than enough for attacks of opportunity, and 14 Constitution for a decent hit score amount. Intelligence and Wisdom don't really matter for you as a Paladin, so when it comes to Charisma, your saving throws are also directly empowered by it, so even better for Paladins. And as usual, you can always dump Intelligence and Wisdom to increase something else. For skill points, I recommend you go with Use Magic Device because of our high Charisma, so you can use scrolls from other classes like Cleric and Wizard. Persuasion too, and once again because of our high Charisma. Now you might also consider investing into mobility, at the very least a single point if you're going with a mounted Paladin, because 1 point is enough to get the mounted combo feats, and more than that lets you avoid at least a first attack against your horse. Now as far as feat selections, the choices are simple. Power attack, and then cleave, so we can gain an extra attack at level 1, which is immense. Going from 1 to 2 attacks is a pretty big increase, especially for the early levels. With cleave, whenever you hit the enemy with a normal attack, you also get to hit a nearby enemy. Power attack can eventually result in a big increase to damage, but at the early levels you probably won't be using it because of the penalty to attack brawls. Which on the other hand, doesn't really matter if you're playing on, let's say, core. For hard and unfair where enemies have higher armor class, that's when it starts to get troublesome, at least at the early levels. For the mid to late levels you have enough boost to easily overcome this penalty. For deity, any of the paladin deities are good. I like going with Siren Ray because she does have a pretty neat, unique interaction in the Winter Sun area. The buff she gives you is crazy powerful. We are of course locked into Lawful Good alignment, which also restricts our Mythic path choices by a lot. No more Trickster cheese, at least not for our Paladin. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me, we won't be able to go Trickster. I mean, I suppose you can try to juggle your Trickster alignment and Paladin alignment, but that's really troublesome. For level 3, as usual, go with Cleaving Finish for yet another free attack. Whenever you kill an enemy, you get a free attack against a nearby foe, and this will stack with the Cleave ability, so that's around 3 attacks you can have just at level 3. Perfect for the early game experience. For your first mercy choice, I would go with Fatigued. Fatigue is very annoying, and it's somewhat hard to heal from as well. Usually you have to cast Restoration. With this, our simple Lay on Hand ability will also heal Fatigue. For level 4, increase Charisma, which is also what we are going to increase on all of the other levels. For your level 5 feat, well, You can go with Outflank, which is an amazing feat, but you should only do it this early if you have other high base attack bonus characters like Fighters, Rangers, Barbarians, and so on, that are also going to be getting Outflank at level 4 or 5. Because it is a teamwork feat which does require your other party members to also have it, at least one of them. Personally, because my characters tend to be medium base attack bonus characters who can only get this feat at level 7, like all of the pets, I save it for level 7, so for now, I'll be going with Combat Reflexes, to later increase our attacks of opportunity. And of course, pick the Horse Companion, because this is the mounted Paladin build. In my second build, we'll get Divine Bond instead. For level 6, I would pick Diseased for a Mercy. Disease is actually a stronger effect than Sickened, and Sickened is very easy to remove. Disease on the other hand tends to be annoying. For a level 7 feat, this is when I would go with Outflank. For level 9, go with Improved Critical. Well, and now it's going to depend on what weapon you picked. You can go with Longswords for Radiance, which I've grown to find Radiance kinda overrated, because the first big power upgrade to Radiance only happens at the end of Chapter 3. That's more than half the game without a good version of Radiance. Second, you can easily get the Holy effect through other spells and abilities. The +6 enhancement is good, but you know it's not that much of a difference over +5, which all of the other weapons can get. My favorite weapon choice for a Paladin is actually Falchion, because Falchions have amazing critical range, above that of Longswords. But if you want a one-handed weapon, you can also go with a Rapier, or a Scimitar. There's plenty of powerful scimitars in the game. So for a mounted Paladin, Falchion is the weapon I would choose. For another Mercy, go with Confused, because Confusion is a very annoying effect. For level 11, I would go with Seize the Moment to finish our Attack of Opportunity boosting feats. And the more Attack of Opportunities we can get, the better for our party, because they are free attacks. For level 12, I would go with the Cursed Mercy. Curse is a very annoying status ailment to remove. It's not that common, but when it hits you, well, you'll be glad you had Cursed Mercy. Exhausted by this level can easily be removed by the Heal spell or Restoration. Starting from level 13 onwards, your feat selection is up to you really, because you already have the best feats for a Paladin. As far as the melee feats, that is. I won't bother with weapon focus because honestly a +1 isn't that much of a difference, especially because at this point we already have our extremely powerful Mark of Justice ability. Because this is a mounted character, this is when I would get started with the mounted feats, and we only need 2 of them. So I would go with mounted combat. The benefit isn't really going to matter that much, but this is why we actually went with mobility. What we really want is Spirited Charge, which you are getting at level 15, and it does require mounted combat. As usual, I already have a guide explaining everything you need to know about mounted combat, linked to the side here and in the video description. But to put it simply, you don't actually need the mounted combat feat to ride your pet. Now at level 15, go with Spirited Charge to increase our charge damage by a massive amount, especially if you have the Pounce ability from, let's say, a Scald party member. For another Mercy, I would go with Stunned, but this is pretty rare. The ones we have left don't really matter that much. Stagger can work too. For your level 17 mounted Paladin feat, we already have the best ones. If you went the weapon focus and dazzling display line, then at this point you could pick Shatter Defenses. I'll just go with Improved Initiative. For another Mercy, Staggered. As for your last feat at level 19, anything you want. I'll just keep it simple and go with weapon focus and Falchion, or your weapon of choice. But like I said, it won't make that much of a difference. If you already found the Baphomet Sneak Attack book by now, you can also go with Accomplished Sneak Attacker. Or even something like Heightened Spell, because at this point, you already have most of the angel spells in the game. So you get more castings of certain spells, like Bolt of Justice and Storm of Justice. At level 20, our last increase into Charisma, and also the Paladin Capstone ability, which unfortunately is pretty disappointing. Besides the maximum amount of healing whenever we use Lay on Hands. Alright, so let's talk about Mythic progression for our Angel Paladin now. For your first Ascension ability, honestly, Close to the Abyss is probably the best because of the extra gore attack, but you know, it doesn't really fit Paladin at all, because it is the Demon ability. So I'll be going with Instrument of Freedom to empower our allies with holy damage. But you know, if you were to ask me what's the best, it's Close to the Abyss. And you can actually pick this without any consequences for your Angel progression. For your true first Mythic ability, and this is for our Mounted Paladin, go with Ever Ready as usual to increase our attack of opportunity power, and also their number per round. For Mythic rank 2, go with Mythic power attack. Mythic rank 3, well, I don't find much of a use for Last Stand because we are a mounted character, so we really won't be getting attacked. Our horse on the other hand will. And because we are reliant on our horse, I would rather go with Mythical Beast early. But you can also pick Mythic Charge, Last Stand. Abundant Smite I don't find necessary at all, at least not for the early Mythic levels, because the benefit requires you to have a lot of Mythic ranks. And of course we also get our Mythic spellbook now for the Angel spells. Because Paladins cannot merge with Angel, this will be added separately and at slower progression than a Cleric or Oracle Angel, but we can still get a lot of powerful Angel buffs. When we first get the Angel path, we'll get up to level 3 Angel spells. Remember, we still have our Paladin spells too, so we will get a lot of self buffs. For Mythic rank 4, Improved Mythic Critical, and then Falchion or your weapon of choice. For your first Sword of Heaven ability, remember that I already have an Angel Guide linked to the side here, where I explain in depth what each one of these abilities do and so on, so I'll keep it shorter for now. Go with Everlasting Flame to increase the duration of your Sword of Heaven ability. For Mythic rank 5, go with Mythic Charge. And for your first Angelic Halo ability, Piercing Rays. For Mythic level 6, this is when I would go for extra Mythic ability and then Abundant Smite. This way we get an extra +3 uses to our Smite, which means Smite for days. And more uses of Mark of Justice too. Elemental Barrage won't really matter for a mounted Paladin. And then Abolish Guile for your Sword of Heaven ability. You might ask why not Guide the Faithful, which does apply a -4 penalty to enemies armor class. Honestly, Abolish Guile actually works against a lot of powerful demons in the game, and this thus means an extra 50% damage against them, which is great. But you can also go with Guide the Faithful if you want the armor class debuff. Mythic level 6 is also when our no-merged Angel Spellcaster Paladin really gets great spells, like Aegis of the Faithful and Bolt of Justice. Holy Hymn too. For Mythic level 7, by now we already have the best of the Mythic abilities, and Inspirational Leader and Leading Strike is something I like to save for other allies like Scylla. You can go with Unrelenting Assault to increase your damage by a bit, but it's not going to matter much because at this point you're already destroying the enemies in 1 to 2 rounds, so at the least it's going to be +2 and at the most +4 damage bonus. Abundant Casting can have some uses for a Paladin, but only if picked early, and we don't really have Mythic abilities to spare early on. You can of course ignore Mythical Beast, delay it for later I mean, and then pick Abundant Casting here, to get some more use of the powerful and useful level 1, 2 and 3 Paladin spells. I would actually just go with Last Stand for now as a failsafe. You know, chances are you won't really have to use this, but it can be good if needed. And then for another Halo ability, Solar Winds, to give us some pretty good resistance, especially against Unholy, Holy, Force and Divine, which is very rare. For Mythic level 8, this is when I would pick Mythic Improved Initiative. The enemies starting from now have a lot higher initiative and this can help you smite or use Mark of Justice as soon as possible, or just attack them to catch them flat-footed for way lower armor class. For another Sword of Heaven, as a greater ability, Speed of Light of course. You actually gain an extra attack even when under haste effect, and also quickens all your level 7 or lower spells, which is huge, because at this point we already have a very high caster level with Angel spells, even as a non-merged character. So we already have up to level 8 Angel spells at this point. For Mythic level 9, which is also our last Mythic for all intents and purposes until the DLC hits, the choice is really up to you, depending on what you like the best. I'll just keep it simple and go with Unrelenting Assault. And then Flame of Life. Alright, so now that our mounted Paladin build is out of the way, let's get started on our Divine Bond Paladin build. The difference already starts at the beginning, but there aren't that many differences fit-wise. You want to go with Noble and then Leader, because for this build, I'll be going with Longswords. You can also go with FAUCHARDS if you want, but you'll then have to expand a feat in Exotic Weapon Proficiency and FAUCHARD. FAUCHARDS and Longswords are the best in my opinion, because both have very early weapons that you can find that give you extra elemental damage on hit, so that when you combine with Divine Weapon Bond and Flaming, you'll get to proc Elemental Barrage as soon as Chapter 2 starts. For FAUCHARDS, that's the Shock Mithril FAUCHARD +2, and you can get it very early in the game. As soon as Chapter 2 starts, all you have to do is talk with Wojif, ask for his Stifling Connections items, And here we are, the Shock Mithril FAUCHARD plus 2 for around 20,000 gold. And when it comes to longswords, we have the Black Dragon's Fang that you can also get the earliest at chapter 2 by just buying it from Wilser Garms, your campsite merchant. This sword deals acid damage on hit instead of electricity like the FAUCHARD from before. Both are enough to proc Elemental Barrage on every single hit by just using Divine Bond Flaming, so you have 2 elements, fire and acid or fire and electricity. The only difference is Black Dragon's Fang is pretty expensive at 75,000 gold instead of the 20,000 for the FAUCHARD. Our ability scores are the same. So 19 Charisma, 14 Strength, 12 Dexterity, 14 Constitution. Skill selection wise, because we don't have mounted combat, we don't have a pet, mobility is not really recommended. Use Magic Device, Persuasion, and any of your choice like Knowledge Word for cooking. Feat selection is mostly the same, Power Attack, and then Cleave. Also Cleaving Finish at 3, Fatigued. Now your level 5 feat can be different. If you want to go with FAUCHARDs for the Shock FAUCHARD, then of course at this point you should pick Exotic Weapon Proficiency and FAUCHARD. If not, then just keep it as usual with Combat Reflexes, assuming you're going with longswords. And then of course Divine Weapon Bond. By combining our Shock FAUCHARD or our Acid Longsword with the Flaming ability, we can easily proc Elemental Barrage on every single one of our hits. Level 6 Mercy, go with Disease. Level 7 Outflank as usual. Level 9 Improved Critical, and then FAUCHARD if you went with it, or in this case, Longsword, and then Mercy Confused, and then Seize the Moment for level 11, just like our mounted Paladin. For your level 12 Mercy, well, the Mercy selection is the same, so Cursed. From 13 onwards is when your feat selection is really going to be different than that of our mounted Paladin, because we don't really have a use for the mounted feats. So for this case, I would go with the Weapon Focused, Dazzling Display, and Shatter Defenses lines. So for now, Weapon Focused, Longsword or FAUCHARD, Dazzling Display now, at level 15. We aren't really going to be using this, it's just to get Shatter Defenses later on. And by this level, your spellcasters can already cast the Frightful Aspect spell, which automatically shakens the enemies without a save, so we really don't need to use Dazzling Display. Stunned as a Mercy, and for level 17, Shatter Defenses at last. We do get this somewhat late. You can of course, let's say, ignore Seize the Moment, and even Combat Reflexes, although I wouldn't recommend you go without Combat Reflexes, and get Shatter Defenses at level 15 by moving Weapon Focus to 11 and Dazzling Display to 13. This way you'll have Shatter Defenses, at the same time your spellcasters can cast Frightful Aspect, and Staggered for a 18 Mercy. As for your last feat at level 19, I'll keep it simple and just go with Improved Initiative, to get our Smite and Mark of Justice early. Alright, so when it comes to Mythic progression for our Divine Bond Paladin, like I said for the mounted one, Close to the Abyss is the best, but it doesn't really fit the Paladin. There's no gameplay consequence to picking it, however. I'll just go with Instrument of Freedom because I think it fits Paladin a lot more. Now your first Mythic ability at level 1 is different and matters a lot. We are going with Elemental Barrage. As I've said before, by the start of chapter 2, which is when we really get our first Mythic, you can already proc Elemental Barrage on all of your attacks by combining either the Acid Longsword or the Shock Mithril FAUCHARD with the Flaming Divine Bond ability. For Mythic level 2, the same, Mythic Power Attack. By Mythic level 3, Ever Ready. For Mythic level 4, Improved Mythic Critical and Longsword or FAUCHARD. And also Everlasting Flame. Now for Mythic level 5, honestly because we don't have a mount, on the other hand we do have Reach, either from the FAUCHARD per size spells, or just the Longsword and side spells. I'll go with Last Stand anyways to ensure our survivability. If you are playing on hard and unfair, then you can pick this earlier, such as instead of Elemental Barrage. It's really hard in Pathfinder to get a character, in the early game at least, that's powerful both offensively and defensively. Well, besides pets of course, like the Leopard, who is the king of early game. So I prefer to leave tanking for my pets and so on, and fully focus on offense for my characters, who can easily benefit from either flanking the enemy, like rogues, or reach through reach weapons and side spells, so they aren't going to be getting hit anyways, and can attack from behind your other characters. And as usual, Piercing Rays. For Mythic level 5, go with extra Mythic ability. I would personally go with Mythic Charge. I do have Skulls for Pounce, and I really like the Charge ability. I already have a guide link to the site here on how you can easily benefit from Charge even outside of battle, to get it going with ease, without being blocked by the enemy and so on. And also abolish Guile, but remember you can go with Guide the Faithful too for the penalty to armor class. For Mythic level 7, and our Divine Bond Paladin, Abundant Smite, and also Solar Winds. For Mythic level 8, the Mythic feats we have left aren't going to make that much of a difference. We can't actually pick Improved Initiative Mythic because I only pick it at level 19 for my Divine Bond character, which is after Mythic rank 8. It's just here because this is a respect character. I'll keep it simple and just go with flawless attacks. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it can help. And also Speed of Light as usual. One extra attack over waste is amazing, especially for a character with Elemental Barrage. As for Mythic level 9, I would go for Relenting Assault, only because we really already have the best of the Mythic abilities by now. But it's not going to make that much of a difference in the end game. You can of course ignore Flawless Attacks and Relenting Assault, and go with, let's say, Enduring Spells, and later Greater Enduring Spells to get 24 hours buffs on some of your abilities, but because we are a no-merged Angel, we gain our Angel spells pretty late at slow progression. I don't find it that worthy. So I'll just pick a Relenting Assault, and then Flame of Life. Alright friends, so let's talk now about gear for our Paladin characters. When it comes to both our Mounted Paladin and also our Divine Bond Paladin, most of the gear slots are going to be the same. So first we have as usual Valex's Magnifying Amulet for a very nice boost to Charisma. As far as armors, I recommend you go with full plates and later on Mithril full plates. But armor class doesn't matter as much for both our characters. For our Mounted Paladin we have our horse. As for our Divine Bond Paladin, we can attack with reach because of size increases such as Enlarged Person and later on Legendary Proportions. Although in the early game you only have access to Enlarged Person, but it can still help. The shared slot doesn't really matter, just pick whatever increases the skills you want, like Lore Master's Robes. As far as belts, as usual for melee characters, belts that increase both your strength and also constitution, the highest being +6. For the glove slots, the choice is also the same for both characters. Fencer's Gift, because of the extra damage when two-handing weapons, and this does actually work even when you are two-handing a one-handed weapon, like my Black Dragon's Fang Acid Longsword here. For example, if I remove the Fencer's Gift, notice our damage actually goes down, meaning it does work for it. For boots, I always say this, but Ronak's Sacrifice are indeed the best. It is a Storyteller relic, and I already have a guide link to the site here on how you can get the best Storyteller relics. And trust me, they do make a difference. A very big one too. If you want to save it for dexterity based characters, then you can always go with the Boots of Stampede instead. For headbands as usual, Darkness Caress for the late game, or for the early and mid game, any headbands that increase your charisma. The Goggles slots is also the same as always, Goggles of Piercing Gaze for the extra insight damage boost against demons, but for this character in particular, also the very high competence bonus to Persuasion, which is one of our main skills. Cloaks of Resistance with the highest modifier, in this case +6, to highly increase your saving throws. For the ring slots, for Paladins in particular, we have the Righteous Crusader's Ring, which does give you an extra Smite evil use, pretty good. And also the Ring of Evasion, so we can easily avoid enemy area of effect spells that target reflex. As a Paladin, it is extremely easy to get your saving throws to absurd amounts. Even with a -10 penalty from Visions of Madness here, we still have 64, which is also why I don't bother with Shake It Off for them. As for braces, they don't matter that much. I have the engraved lucky braces here, which you start the game with, and they can actually last you through the entire game. But after you get sneak attack from the Baphomet book, you can also use the braces of Abrupton slot for even higher sneak attack damage. And if you are using a FAUCHARD or any other two-handed weapon, you can also go with the braces of Dominance to make enemies unable to attack whenever you confirm a critical hit. The difficulty class isn't that high, it's a will saving throw, but you know, it's a non-hit effect, for critical hits that is, so can work every now and then. And when it comes to rings, you can also use the Ring of Imminent Demise if you are wielding a two-handed weapon. Unlike the Fencer's Gift gloves, this only works for actual two-handed weapons, so if you are two-handing a one-handed weapon, it won't work. Now as far as weapons, this is the main difference between the builds. For my Divine Bond Paladin, you can go with Longswords or FAUCHARDS, as I've said before. And I actually also already have guides on the best Longswords and FAUCHARDS that you can find in the game throughout all of the chapters, linked to the site here and down below in the video description. To keep it simple, for Divine Bond, the Black Dragon's Fang Longsword is by far the best. It has acid damage on hit, which is perfect because by just turning Divine Bond on with the flaming ability, we can now trigger Elemental Barrage on every single hit. I would actually prefer to have this instead of, let's say, Radiance, which you can also get, because, well, you cannot proc Elemental Barrage with Radiance as a Paladin, so there's that. And as for our mounted Paladin, well, I went with FAUCHIONS, and you have two choices for the best weapon. First we have Finian, especially his +3 and +5 versions. I also already have a guide covering Finian, but overall it's one of the best weapons in the game because of the Brilliant Energy property. Or you can also go with Jinx, which you can also find pretty early in the game, starting from chapter 2 by buying it from Wilsorgarms. I also have a guide for FAUCHIONS already, so please be sure to check that. Jinx lets you get a free extra attack whenever you hit an enemy affected by hexes, while Finian has Brilliant Energy. It is true that Paladins can eventually enchant their weapons with Brilliant Energy, but this is wasteful because it costs quite a lot, +4 to your bonus. Now the quick slot is actually pretty important for Paladins too, especially the Aroden's Wrath Scabbard, which alters your Paladin's Smite Evil ability and Mark of Justice as well, to change the armor class bonus gained from Deflection to Sacred, which does matter quite a lot, because Deflection, you know, is pretty easy to get from Shield of Faith and also Rings of Protection. Sacred, on the other hand, is super rare for armor class, and when you consider this will let us get up to +18 to our armor class against Smite targets as Sacred, well, even just as a non-mounted Paladin, we can have more than 90 armor class without anything invested in any defensive feat whatsoever. It doesn't need any saying how crazy powerful that can be. This scabbard even has another great effect too, because your first attack will also do an additional 1d4 points of divine damage, pretty neat. Finding Aroden's Wrath is pretty easy too, you just have to loot it from the Green Gate area, starting from chapter 3. Now, Old Grimoire is also pretty useful for Paladins, because it does grant you quite a lot of extra spell slots, 3 for level 1, 2 for level 2, and 2 for level 3. And when you combine it with our very high charisma, just look at how many slots I have for level 1, 2, and 3 spells. And Paladins do have pretty powerful spells at these levels. You can also get it at chapter 3 by defeating the Ivory Sanctum boss. Now for the other slots, well, one Greater Quicken Meta Magic Rod, just so in case you want to, let's say, use your very powerful Paladin spells. In this case, Bolt of Justice and also Storm of Justice. You do gain them pretty late, but they still can do pretty good damage. And also the Grandmaster's Rod for the same purpose, to empower these area of effect spells that hit the enemy no matter how high their armor class is and deal irresistible damage. So you can actually combine both spellcasting with melee attacks. Alright, now let's talk about spell allocation for your Paladin. When it comes to Paladin spells, the best level 1 spells are first, Veil of Heaven, because of the very neat boost to armor class as Sacred against evil outsiders like all of the demons. Veil of Positive Energy does the same except against undead. This has a more situational use. After all, we do fight way more demons than undead. Also, Blast Weapon, because this will enchant your weapons to penetrate demons' physical resistance, but we can just use the Covenant of the Inheritor anyways. But most importantly, it does let your critical hits automatically confirm against the enemy. And lastly, Divine Favor, of course, one of the best self-buffs game to increase both your attack bonus and damage rolls. For level 2 spells, first, Aura of Greater Courage, to make your entire party immune to fear, with amazing duration at 10 minutes per level. And second, the ever so useful and perhaps a bit cheesy as well, Bestow Grace spell. You can give any character, a good aligned character that is, a bonus to their saving throws equal to their charisma modifier. Perfect for characters with very high charisma like our Paladin himself, sorcerers, oracles, and so on. Amusingly enough, this spell will stack, so Bestow Grace here, with your Paladin Divine Grace ability, although this might change on future patches. As for level 3 spells, we have Greater Magic Weapon, which does stack with your current weapon enhancement up to +5, a pretty good spell for Paladins. The other ones aren't as good but can still prove useful. Archon's Aura because of your high charisma, and also Prayer. As for level 4 spells, first Eagle Soul for the amazing increase to strength and armor class as sacred, and also Holy Sword, which you can use to enchant a weapon of your allies, including ranged weapons, despite it being Nape's sword. Holy is always useful. Now for angel spells, please be sure to check my angel spells guide for a proper in-depth explanation of all of these spells, but most importantly at level 9, Fortress of the Faithful and Sun Form, at level 8 Storm of Justice and Avenger's Blessing, for level 7 Sun Marked Without a Doubt and also Ward Against Weakness Communal, for level 6 Bolt of Justice Heal, and when you first get it, Aegis of the Faithful, although this later upgrades into Fortress of the Faithful. Your level 5 angel spells aren't that useful as a non-merged character, mostly Pillar of Life, which can easily cheese any undead enemy, including Playful Darkness, Cleanse and Breath of Life. Raise Dead can work too. And also Cleansing Flames if you want a bit of area of effect irresistible damage. For level 4, Divine Power is the way to go. Level 3, Shield Against Demonkind or Archon's Aura. We don't have Shield of Faith, so with Shield we can actually empower our allies' Deflection to armor class. And also gives them a damage shield against demons. For level 2 it doesn't matter that much, I only have a few lesser restorations here, but you can also go with Aid. As for level 1, just go with Divine Favor. Unbreakable Heart can work too to remove confusion, but we already have a Mercy that does that. Alright, so let's see now how our Divine Bond Paladin fares against the Mythic demons, especially the Mythic Baylor here. We are the God Smite Evil going on the Baylor, and now we're just going to charge. On the Metalith is left now. And that was it. So on a critical hit, we actually deal more than 700 damage. 649. And look at all the holy damage. 1, 2, 3, 4 stacks of holy damage. And that's more of course because this is just our main hit. The other procs here all come from the same attack as well. So it's around 900 damage total. Meanwhile for a normal hit against the Baylor, let's see, 209. And all of the secondary procs. Elemental Barrage here. We also have Sun Marked. So that's around, what, 500 for a normal attack. Certainly not bad at all. And the critical hit on the Succubus is actually missing the plus 20 damage from Mark of Justice or Smite Evil too. Alright friends, so let's test our mounted Paladin damage against the same enemies, the Mythic Baylor and the other Mythic demons here. Of course, let's use Smite Evil on the Baylor. It's a swift action, so you can always full attack right after. And let's proceed to charge at it with Pounce from our Scald. We are enlarged, both our rider and the horse, which makes for some amusing animation issues. But anyways, you don't actually have to be enlarged, it just increases your damage. But you know, as a mounted character you do such high damage that it doesn't matter that much. It's just overkill. But I do think it looks pretty amusing. So basically, with just that, both the Baylor and the Metalith already exploded here. So let's look at our damage against the Baylor. On a critical hit we dealt 1335 damage, which then procced a Cleaving Finish against the nearby Metalith for more than 1100 damage. Because of our Falchion instead of Longswords, we have higher critical range at 15 to 20 instead of 17 to 20. And of course from our main attack we also have secondary procs. Everything here is holy because we don't have Elemental Barrage, so we can actually use the Angel Sword ability to convert all of our damage into holy. When it comes to your Divine Bond Paladin, you don't want to do that because it's going to turn your elemental damage into holy, thus not letting you proc Elemental Barrage at all. But anyways, we have 1, 2, 3 secondary procs, all from the same attack. Just look at all the damage. So you might as well say we can deal close to 2000 damage on a critical hit for a mounted character. Now let's see if we can get some normal hits against the Succubi. Everything was also a critical hit. Even our horse pet deals more than 100 damage per hit, so 76 here, and then an extra 32 from a secondary damage proc, which is not bad at all for a pet. So let's just use our normal attack against the ones here. Right, so on a normal hit, it's something like 200 damage. 138 here, 12 and 32, all from the same proc. But this is also without charging, so we don't get the bonus from Spirited Charge, which could actually double that. So you might as well say that when it comes to normal hits, I do believe our Elemental Barrage Divine Bond build will deal more damage. On the other hand, for critical hits and also charge attacks, when you consider pounce, our mounted character wins by far. Also, don't forget that when mounted on your horse, you can just use the horse's armor class instead of your own, for anything besides attacks of opportunity. Alright everyone, so this was it for my Paladin class guide. I hope I managed to properly show you how powerful this class can be as a whole, when it comes not only to damage but also supporting your party members against all of the many evil enemies you face in the game. If you found this guide useful, then as always please remember to like, subscribe and even become a member to access some exclusive perks and help support the channel. If you think I missed something or you have another way of building your Paladin that you really like, then please comment down below too. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends!